It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, July 5th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's going to get to know our new London Knights prospects.
Yeah, let's see what we find out.
We're going to get into that with Mike Stubbs, the radio voice of the London Knights, as well as get caught up on the Ivan Fedotov situation, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who is on Twitter at Sportsology. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. You can subscribe or follow us for free over on YouTube. We're on the SiriusXM app. Anywhere you get your podcasts, you'll get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hope you all had a good 4th of July holiday out there. I guess for the Americans out there, Canadians, you had your holiday last weekend. So happy belated Canada Day to you. But there has been a little bit of information bubbling to the surface about Ivan Fedotov recently. So wanted to get to that before we talk about our London Knights guys. So Russ, what's really the latest that we have heard?
The latest we have heard is he was supposed to sign a 2-year deal with CSKA, and then it stalled. And then there's this whole convoluted thing that they're trying to say they can't do it because he's got an NHL contract. And it's like, but that has been in existence, that contract, for months now. That they rolled that over for a while already. So I just feel like they're trying to set a tone, set an example, get the NHL to change something, get to the board, get a transfer agreement going, and it's probably not going to work. And I've heard things about the CSKA GM, so I don't really trust this.
Yeah, so basically, it was put out there like months ago, like you said, that Fedotov signed that 2-year deal with CSKA, but maybe potentially they didn't send it to the official KHL registry until recently.
Really?
Could be. I mean, again, this is all speculation,
Yeah.
really, but that there's a loose agreement between the KHL and the NHL that if somebody's under contract with one league, you can't sign a contract with the other league. But there's nothing written in stone about this, right?
No.
So that is like the scuttlebutt, is that the KHL won't recognize the contract because they're following the understood rules, right? That the Flyers have a deal with him, except all of this, like none of this is a law or written down
No.
anywhere. So to your point, Russ, the KHL could try to be like pushing the boundaries here with what is allowed in this contract situation.
Yeah, I just think that that's where they're going with this, and so we'll see. This is going to be a waiting game now.
It really is. There's an account, Hockey News Hub, which has reported on this situation and put up part of a post from Fedotov that suggests he's been in some sort of training or training camp in the KHL. But again, no official word on, if the NHL is going to say anything about this or that the KHL is going to say anything about
I don't
this.
think the NHL is going to say anything.
No, I don't think they want to upset any apple carts on that front right now. So I think that we're just going to have to wait and see if this changes anything in terms of official policy of either league.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath. The fact is, reason Mitchkov's not in camp is because KHL is having camps. The fact that it sounds like Fedotov is in camp without a contract. Would I be shocked if he went all year without a contract and they just paid him on the side? No. Who
No.
knows what's going on there?
Yeah, it remains to be seen. But in the meantime, Matvey Michkov isn't around for training camp, but Oliver Bonk we have seen in training camp for the Flyers. Denver Barkey has been banged up, so we haven't quite seen him yet.
No.
But the two of them are both from the London Knights of the OHL. So we thought, who better to talk to get to know them a little better than Mike Stubbs, who is the radio guy for the London Knights up in Ontario. And we are going to get to our conversation with him coming up right now. All right, we are thrilled to welcome to the show the radio voice of the London Knights, Mike Stubbs. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
Rachel, Russ, great to be here. Exciting times.
Very exciting times in the crossover between the Philadelphia Flyers prospect pool and the London Knights, with two London Knights draft picks in this most recent draft with Oliver Bonk and Denver Barkey. I want to start off with just sort of a general look at Dale Hunter's coaching system and how these two guys fit into how they're used on the ice.
Well, I mean, one of the things that you get when you play for the London Knights is a real education in what's going to happen should you have the ability to play at one of the next levels in hockey, be it the American Hockey League, be it the National Hockey League, because you've got people like Dale Hunter and Mark Hunter who have been there and have close connections with an awful lot of people, know what the game is looking for. Dale is always watching, looking for new ways to help players, looking at ways the game is going, and he implements that very quickly into what he's doing with his team. I mean, the idea of IQ and speed, he's been preaching that, and the Knights have been drafting that for a long, long time. And so you're prepared. You really get an opportunity to play like you're going to have to. You learn playing away from the puck. And let's face it, the track record shows that it works. If you break down the London Knights, if you break down all players coming out of the Canadian Hockey League, so all of major junior hockey in Canada and the United States, in the Western Hockey League, the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and the OHL, by the number of players coming out, Rachel, Russ, you should have 7, 8, 9 players per team on average playing in the National Hockey League. The Knights usually run around an average of 28 to 30. So you do have players who are identified when they're young, developed when they're coming through their junior years, and they tend to have good success going on to the NHL, one that definitely is well above the average.
Yeah, it's a good pro environment there. My last time there was when they were retiring Patrick Kane's number. We were just passing through on a scouting trip, had no idea that was happening, and it was fun. But it's a pro environment, a pro offense. I guess the first thing I want to ask you about Oliver Bonk is, while I like him, and I like him as a defensive defenseman, I don't know where the offense is in his game or if it's even going to be there. I felt like in the playoffs it didn't really show. But everything else is there. He's going to be a pro defenseman. I have no doubt about that. What do you feel about his offense?
Russ, I heard you talking on a past episode of Locked On Flyers about, wondering about the safety of the pick, how safe the pick was. Oliver Bonk is a player who I think you're going to really like because he is going to play in the National Hockey League. I really believe that. I've watched junior hockey for a long, long time. As far as offense goes, I'm eager to see what this year brings, because last year the London Knights had a team that wound up going to the OHL Championship Series. But on that team, you had a player like Logan Mailloux, who is going to be your number one option on the power play from the point. He has a shot that is NHL caliber right now, that some NHL guys are going to look at and say, I wish I had that shot. You had Sam Dickinson, who is a 16-year-old, but again, very good, accurate shot. You have Logan Mailloux, who will move on to the American Hockey League. That's going to open up a spot. And I wonder if Oliver Bonk finds himself in that position this year, where he does get some more time on the power play. He is someone who has the IQ to jump up into the rush. He's somebody who scored the first goal of the year for the London Knights, and he did it because he jumped up at the right time. So he's got that poise. I'm eager to see what this year is like for his offense, because I think you're going to get a better picture of what he can do offensively. Now, at the same time, and Oliver said this right after he was drafted, you look back over this year, he said Dale Hunter and the coaching staff, Mark Hunter, mapped out what they would like to see happen for him, and then made it happen to the point that he was taken 22nd overall by the Philadelphia Flyers. So he's somebody that is going to just be solid in his own end. This guy doesn't make mistakes. He has that good first pass, and while you're going to look at that and say, okay, that's great, he's one of those defensemen where if you're not noticing him on the ice, he's doing his job 100%.
All right, we'll have more Mike Stubbs talking about Oliver Bonk and Denver Barkey coming up next.
Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you could spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 on bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball.
Yeah, we got to see him a little bit at development camp yesterday, and when they were doing the drills of like puck battles in the corner, puck retrieval, maneuvering out of tight spaces to start the initial breakout, he looked real solid and very impressive compared to the other guys out there. Would you say that like that's sort of his bread and butter right now?
Absolutely. I mean, you want a guy who's going to be able to get that transition game going. He's your guy. And the other thing that I liked about his game this year, at the beginning of the year, he wasn't using his body very much at all. Now, this was his first full season in major junior hockey. When you're 17 years old, playing against 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds, they've got the size advantage, the thickness advantage. And so he wasn't using his size. But as the year went along, you saw him start to be more physical. And that's another element that I think will really grow in his second full year in junior.
Yeah, I mean, he's 6'2". I mean, you could see where he's going to fill out. So I would definitely agree with that. I do like his first pass. Even yesterday, he was putting that on display. I mean, those are things that you have to have in the NHL if you want to, be a defenseman in the NHL.
That's it. So he's somebody that's going to give you all of those things. And he comes from a family that makes the NHL not just wow, I'm here now. I have to adjust to the fact that I'm starstruck. He's not going to have that. I mean, he's been brought along really well. Radek Bonk, his father, played a lot of years, and Russ, you made a good point on a past episode that doesn't play the same position. But just the idea of this is what it's like. And there's a lot of this is what it's like around the London Knights organization. Oliver's blessed to have a little bit more of that coming from that in his family. And so I think he really treats this as here's the road. I don't expect the road to take me to the NHL tomorrow or next week or next season. If it takes a couple of years, if he's going to play in the American Hockey League, he's going to be prepped for whatever that is.
Yeah, he seems to have a really good head on his shoulders and is really just focused on the things that he needs to get better at. One of the things that people have said he needs to work on is his skating. How have you seen that progress?
I think he is a good skater. I mean, he's not somebody who's going to dash up the ice. That's not his game either. He's not someone who's going to wow you with his speed, but does he have the mobility to handle players who are coming down the ice? If you want to talk about the little intricacies like gap control, he's great there. He really doesn't struggle with anything like that because he's really poised. And one of the things, and I'd be eager to hear what you guys thought of him at development camp, because again, you're up in that next rung. These players have been identified as potential future prospects in the NHL because he does stand out when you watch a game just through his poise, through his movements. You look and you say, that guy just seems to have an athletic body, a professional body about him, a professional look about him. Did that stand out at all through development?
It did. He was the best guy in drills. Like you could tell that
for sure.
that he had been working on these things. You could tell he had gone through some hard practices. Like the drills did not affect him at all. Not a bit.
Good to hear.
We haven't quite seen him in more of a game setting. They did some little like 2-on-2 short ice drills out there. And they did some really like extended breakout drills that we saw, and he looked really good there. They're doing a scrimmage later this week, so we'll get to see more of him in a game style action later. But in terms of the specific drills and how they affect defensemen specifically, he really did a real solid job out there.
That's fine. So yeah, let's move on to Denver Barkey, who I'll be honest was not on my radar this year. Not because he's not good. I do a list of like 55 guys for elite prospects. I'm in on all their meetings, but he was, he ended up at like 79, somewhere in that range. So that's just far enough out of my range that I have some players that I still track in that spot and some I don't. So I've caught up on him. I've looked at Instat, looked at his video and everything. I like his play. I think some of those goals, I'm not sure he's going to score at the NHL level, but some he will. The trickiness around the net is definitely a good thing. He has scored from some long areas, but I think that's because the Knights have this, they create havoc in front of the net, and I think that does help him. Averages 3 shots a game, 18 minutes. That's the biggest thing to me is he's not going to get 18 minutes in the NHL, but he's getting 18 minutes a game there. That's a lot.
It is, and there's a reason for that. I mean, he's earned those minutes. When you play for Dale Hunter, you earn your minutes. If you're playing well, he's going to find a way to put you on the ice. And so Denver Barkey did that. He played on a line with Easton Cowan, who was a first-rounder to the Toronto Maple Leafs. They played with Ryan Winterton, who you'll see one day with the Seattle Kraken. So he's somebody I'm really interested to see his next year. This will be his 3rd year in the OHL because he played as a 16-year-old, played as a 17-year-old. So this will be his 3rd year. But you've really seen his game grow because, again, one of the things that Dale Hunter is going to try and help you do if you have the skill to play at a professional level, and Denver has that, is find out who you're going to be and then really try to put you into that position. And so, again, what we've seen from Denver, if you picture him as an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, he was the guy who was able to score 8 and 9 goals a game. He was the kid who's going out there. He's flying all over the ice. He's scoring goals. And again, when you step up into the next levels, it becomes harder and harder to do that. So he was someone that really added penalty killing to his game, really added, that defensive awareness to his game. That's really come along in his game. And he has the ability to strip pucks away, reads the play really well, and his quickness can drive defensemen at the junior hockey level nuts. So how that translates to the next levels, well, we'll have to wait.
Yeah, they sort of back off him. I noticed that, Mike, in video I was watching. They sort of back off him when he has the puck because he has just good enough speed, a really good shot, so they kind of, like, they don't know what to do with him. His puck battles were really good, actually. His percentage was pretty high on that. He's 52% on faceoffs, so I don't know if he's really going to be a center at the next level, though. I kind of wonder if they're going to move him into a wing position at some point, knowing that that's probably where he's headed.
And he was playing a lot of wing through the playoffs for the Knights.
Yeah.
As much as he can take draws and does play center, he was playing a lot of wing on that line that I talked about with Ryan Winterton and Easton Cowan. And again, that will be Dale Hunter trying to identify where do you fit best so we can help you to get ready for that position. And, if you have a team, and there are a few of them, but the Knights are certainly one of those teams that spends a lot of time on faceoffs. And Dale Hunter was a very good face-off guy in the NHL. So you're going to get a good education.
He might have cheated a bit, but he was good at it.
Yeah, but where's the gray area in all of this? one of the lines that I love that Dale said he used sometimes would he'd skate into the face-off circle against somebody, and if he'd never taken a draw against them before, he would look at them and say something like, I don't know what's happening on draws lately for me, but my stick keeps like coming up. I keep trying to take it down, but for whatever reason, it just keeps flying up. I caught a guy in the chin the other day. So the little gray area things. And then all of a sudden,
yeah.
I don't know if I want to get in there against this guy, and you win the faceoff. So, I mean, that kind of stuff doesn't happen as much in the game today.
No.
But it is that gray area. How do you find the little things that you do well that can translate into helping your team? And for Denver, I think this year we're going to see, because we started to see at the end of last year, he's never been a big guy, but he started to just go to the net anyway.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
we're really going to start to see that, because as a 16-year-old, when you're 140 pounds, going to the net, it's not something that you're used to doing or you have the confidence to do. But I really wonder how that part of his game is going to develop, because I think we're going to see him take the puck to the net a whole lot more this next year. And that confidence level is certainly there for him. And so I think that's going to be a really good element to his game going forward.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more interesting aspects of his game for me, is that being a smaller guy, he really seems to understand how to use the body that he has in order to work to his advantage. And, as he is playing against bigger and bigger and physically stronger competition, like, how do you think that'll translate at the higher levels?
Yeah, you make an excellent point, Rachel, because, again, you're never going to overpower somebody. So do you have what it takes to go through them? It's hard to go through an NHL defenseman, but he really has the savvy and the smarts, and he's really showed that willingness to learn. And so no matter what it is, if he's going to get tips from a coach, it's not going to be, no, I just play my game. I know what works for me. He's not that guy. He's going to take that information and he's going to try and utilize it on the ice.
And we'll have our last part of the conversation with Mike Stubbs coming up next.
Mike, does he get banged up in games? Because right now he's banged up, can't perform in camp. Maybe he's going to get out there for a 1 day or at least the game. He had a long season. What do you think? How is his durability as a smaller guy?
He's pretty slippery on the ice. So he's not a guy who's putting himself in a position to take hits that are going to wear him down. So I think that's a good element. And in terms of, that durability factor, he hasn't really gone through huge injury problems, had an illness, a minor injury this year, but we're not talking huge injury problems. We're not talking anything that I think you'd red flag.
That is good to hear. We paid pretty close attention to the OHL playoffs this past year, mostly because one of our other prospects, J.R. Avon, is on Peterborough. Not to bring up a sore subject, if it's a sore subject at all.
Hey, he's a good player.
Yeah. So we, obviously we were more focused on the Peterborough side of things in that OHL final, but as far as how you think they did stepping up to the playoffs level for both of these guys, what do you think in terms of their compete levels?
Well, that was most impressive about them. And I've got a theory that I want to put to the test. When you look at the junior leagues who make it to the Memorial Cup, the OHL has had very good teams the last few years, but they get so banged up going through the OHL playoffs. I really think the Ontario Hockey League playoffs mimic the National Hockey League playoffs to a greater extent than the other two junior leagues, because they are just that physical. And Bonk and Barkey stepped up their physical game. They had to. The shot blocking was there. One of the things that Dale Hunter will point to is that you can't play the way that you have to play to win games for 82 games or for 68 games. That's the number in junior hockey. You can't do it. Your body won't last, but you can do it for short periods of time. And with that, we saw both of those guys willing to do it for short periods of time.
Yeah, I've covered a couple of Mem Cups. I've seen the battle. It's a lot. I agree with you on that. With Barkey, I kind of look at him like, if he makes it to the NHL, I think third line probably looks good for him. I don't know if he's a second liner. What's your feeling if you had to project him a little?
I think, his ceiling would be as a second liner if his scoring works out. But I really think based on what he's willing to do, that you could look at him in a number of different roles, whether it's that penalty kill role, whether it's that scrappy winger role. I think he's willing to do both of those things as well. So having that versatility, and that's something that he's worked hard to grow. It really is, because he came in as that guy who can score. He was a first-round pick into the Ontario Hockey League, and his bread and butter was his point production. His game is really more than that now, which is so good.
Yeah, and then, as far as Oliver Bonk goes, what do you see him? I think we would see him as a second pairing guy when all is said and done. But where do you see him?
Yeah, I think he'll turn into a minute muncher. No matter what pair you have him in, you're never going to be worried about putting him out on the ice in whatever situation. I don't know that he'll be that elite power play guy in the National Hockey League, but he's somebody who, again, kill penalties, not get scored on, make those right plays, do the right thing, all the little things you need to win. That's Oliver Bonk.
And just to wrap things up, is there anything that maybe we don't know about either of these guys yet? A little fun anecdote or something you want to let Flyers fans know in terms of, who they're in for when eventually they hit the Flyers?
You know what? They're really professional guys. So, in terms of little quirks and things, not too much. I mean, Oliver always gets his hair talked about because of his dad's hair. I keep waiting for him one day to just show up with a complete buzz cut for that reason. Denver's a guy who likes to laugh, likes to have fun. I mean, they're well liked by their teammates, so you're bringing in good character players. So, you've got a couple of real gems in Oliver Bonk and Denver Barkey. And in the direction the Flyers are going in, I can't wait to see this team and those guys in, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it takes.
Love to hear that on both accounts. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Such great insight into these new Flyers prospects.
Rachel, Russ, thank you. It's been fun.
All right, Russ, that was such a fun conversation with Mike. Really good, detailed insight on these guys, and maybe made me think about especially Denver Barkey, I think, a little bit differently.
Yeah, no question. I mean, it really, it's good to get the feeling of a guy who sees him all the time and is covering him all the time. And he really, I feel like he didn't give us a biased view, which is good. I think the view of it was good.
Yeah, I think it was pretty spot on, very honest. And I think we'll be definitely going back to him to get caught up on them as next season progresses.
Yeah, for sure.
And our Flyers fun thing, of course, is Bonk and Barkey related. I'm going to enjoy saying that, by the way, for the rest of eternity. So look forward to that. The London Knights social media was equally as enthusiastic about the fact that two of their guys were drafted by the Flyers. And so they very handily posted a goal that Denver Barkey scored that was assisted by Oliver Bonk. And so here is that for you in our show notes. That will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening, everydayers on the show. Tomorrow is that all mailbag episode with all of your questions that you've been asking that have built up over the past week. Very excited to get to them. A nice variety of questions as well. So stay tuned for that. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you want your question answered on the show, you can tweet us at Locked On Flyers, email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russell Matt Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.